Hello and welcome to the AshenCast. You hear that, Sin? AshenCast, not chat. I got it right this time. So I'm just, in my defense, saying that right now. But yes, welcome back to another podcast. A bit late from the last one, but we're back on the bandwagon, as it were. So, now just let me introduce our guest this evening, Deks, and of course the already known ShadowedSin. Say hi, guys.
Howdy do.
Smackety yakety dur.
Memorable as ever. But leaping straight into it then, the recent beta weekends and stress tests. Any fun shenanigans from anyone? Because I know loads of people have been really excited because, of course, new races and that other things finally getting a chance to shine and the Asura areas, etc. So, what did you guys find?
Ratasum is large and has basically a Star Trek feel to it, like entire holographic computer displays. It's fantastic. I love it. That and my client deleted itself, so I can't take part in the stress test.
Re-download.
That is the simple answer.
My internet sucks.
Do it anyways.
Excuses, man. Excuses. But yes, I gotta admit, what surprised me about Ratasum is, I knew the Asura were going to be advanced. I didn't expect, well, frankly, I'm half expecting Ratasum to take off. Because the level of tech they displayed during the actual weekend just astounded me. I mean, fallen holographic stuff, crystalline-based things, other sorts, and it just really surprised me just how advanced they're actually allowing the race to go. I mean, stereotypically playing WoW and things like that, I was always surprised that, there was tech, but it was always rustic, it might explode. But in Ratasum, no, it is, we have built an entire floating city of energy.
Well, the other thing to remember, though, is with WoW, is you had a lot of dissonance with the lore in some aspects, especially with the addition of Kazan. And there's probably going to be a few people who are going to tell me that I'm completely wrong. Is I've played Kata, and I've seen Kazan or Kazan or whatever the heck it's called, and it's just complete dissonance with the lore. Whereas the Asura, with their high technology and their love of being evil magical masterminds. Well, not all evil. It's just that they have it fits with the world. Each race has its own level of technology, but the Asura have their own feel, especially with how the entire city seems to be one gigantic university, which is fantastic. And then everybody just gets lost in the grove. Sorry.
I was going to say, you should also keep in mind that the Asura are the race where the devs actually came out and said we wanted to see what you could do with that diminutive, intelligent race that always got it right, even when they got it wrong.
Oh yeah, that is one thing I actually do love about those guys. They're not completely lacking. If anything, they're actually, if I would say that, if we have two elvish races in this game, I would say they're the humans, in a lot of ways the Asura, especially the high elven, feel of the arcane master and stuff like that. I would say that's the Asura. The Ears fit too.
They are the masters of technology. They are, well, it's easy to say they are the most intelligent race. I mean, you can play intelligent characters, but when it comes down to it, the Asura just have that edge. They're literally built for it.
Not to mention, they're also, really, 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 sarcastic and full of it, like a Vulcan is. So there you go. Pointy ears, full of it, focused on science. I'm thinking around the time of Star Trek Enterprise when the Vulcans were warlike. But that's kind of what they fit, except they're just really small. And I think some people are still getting used to the fact that they're not gnomes.
Everyone seemed to think just because they were shot they were going to be the stereotypical sort of comedic gnomes. And if you actually go for the area, sure, there's some very fun and very sort of silly quests, but there's always that serious edge of the fact that, once again, you are dealing with incredible technology. I mean, they've even got artificial intelligence in the golems. It's even explained during the lore. I mean, even though one ends in a romance story, I think, which led to one of our members coming up with a 50 Shades of Chrome he wants to write at some point.
Interesting. The interesting thing, though, if I remember correctly, I think Ray said that a lot of their golems are actually infused with elemental spirits to provide a basis of intelligence. And that is why the Inquest is actually still abhorred in some aspects. They're not evil, but they are amoral because they have former apprentices of Snap like Kudu who are willing to basically rip the soul out of a human or another sentient animal or person and put it inside of a golem. That's what the Inquest is willing to do, and that's why they're so abhorred by some Asura, because sapient testing to them is like one of the worst things you can do.
Which begs the question, how long is it going to be until someone tries to RP as a golem? I want to see if that actually occurs. I mean, I suppose it is possible, but it'd be interesting to see if anyone tries.
They would have to get the environmental hazmat suit and walk around with that or drink golem potions all the time, but if they did that, I would give them the benefit of the doubt. But, yeah. I still got lost in the Grove. It's really easy to get lost in the Grove.
I somehow managed to remember where everything is in the Grove.
Dear
God, that's unheard of.
Did you find a little hidden, like, fountain place that's at the bottom? It's at the, you go through, like, water, and there's this really nifty little fountain area where you can hang out. It's kind of like the sewer section of, Lion's Arch. It's got a bunch of little hidden places where you can just hang out and roleplay.
Yeah, I fully explored the Grove, Lion's Arch, and Radasum because when I play a game, that's pretty much what I do, is just find all the little nooks and crannies.
I had a lot of fun doing the vistas in the Grove. I have to say, I mean, I love the addition of vistas, by the way. It's another thing just for you to go do, and it really encourages people to explore the map. I can definitely tell you that I'm gonna probably become a map completionist at some point.
Though what still amazes me about the Grove is Char in dress, instantly disguised as Nightmare Court. Makes perfect sense. I mean, I know it's being silly and pedantic, but it was a very funny part of the actual beta weekend when people started exposing that.
Well, it's like there's this bandit camp that's completely barred off. You have to talk to a Lion Guard spy disguised as a bandit, and they'll put you in a bandit disguise to infiltrate the camp and poison their food supply and all. But despite the fact this camp has bandits from every race in it, you are automatically made into a human bandit.
Oh man, yo, that's racist.
That is something they could fix, because it is a little immersion breaking. But you know, it's not too big of a deal.
Oh, all humans are bandits, are they? Oh, I'm offended.
Yes, all humans are bandits. That should be a meme now.
Human
all
equality.
Humans are bandits in Agnet Renaissance.
I demand human equality. But it was a male bandit too. It's always male bandits. Sexism and racism.
I don't think I got to go to Skritzburg, but I was talking to Koenig the other day, and he said he was messing around in Skritzburg. Did anyone actually go to Brisbane Wildlands and check out the Skritz City?
I did the big event there where you have to protect the king.
Really? I didn't even know that was an accessible area.
Yeah, you can go into the throne room, which is basically just this big dome with a Skrit wiggling around on a throne and laughing a lot. But he gets attacked by, I want to say Nightmare Court, but I don't think that's actually it. I think it's actually other Skrit, but my memory is so shoddy. But it's like one of those big world chain events where you just kind of build up to it. I just got lucky by happening to run into it while I was doing a heart quest down there.
I think it's awesome that they actually have a not instance, but a non-zone city that you can enter, and there are meta events that affect it.
Yeah, and depending on how it plays out, determines on whether or not the Skrit in there.
Hello and welcome to the AshenCast. You hear that, Sin? AshenCast, not chat. I got it right this time. So I'm just, in my defense, saying that right now. But yes, welcome back to another podcast. A bit late from the last one, but we're back on the bandwagon, as it were. So, now just let me introduce our guest this evening, Deks, and of course the already known ShadowedSin. Say hi, guys.
Howdy do.
Smackety yakety dur.
Memorable as ever. But leaping straight into it then, the recent beta weekends and stress tests. Any fun shenanigans from anyone? Because I know loads of people have been really excited because, of course, new races and that other things finally getting a chance to shine in the Asura areas, etc. So, what did you guys find?
Radasum is large and has basically a Star Trek feel to it, like entire like holographic computer displays. It's fantastic. I love it. That and my client deleted itself, so I can't take part in the stress test.
Re-download.
That is the simple answer.
My internet sucks.
Do it
Excuses.
anyways.
Excuses, man, excuses. But yes, I gotta admit, what surprised me about Radissom is, like, I knew the Asura were going to be advanced. I didn't expect, well, frankly, I'm half expecting Radissom to take off, because the level of tech they displayed during the actual V weekend just astounded me. I mean, fallen holographic stuff, crystalline-based things, other sorts, and it just really surprised me just how advanced they're actually allowing the race to go. I mean, stereotypically playing WoW and things like that, I was always surprised that, there was tech, but it was always rustic, it might explode. But in Radissom, no, it is, we have built an entire floating city of energy.
Well, the other thing to remember, though, is with WoW, if you had a lot of dissonance with the lore in some aspects, especially with the addition of Kazan, and there's probably going to be a few people who are going to tell me that I'm completely wrong, is I've played Kata, and I've seen Kazan or Kazan, or whatever the heck it's called, and it's just complete dissonance with the lore, whereas the Asura, with their high technology and their love of being evil, magical masterminds, well, not all evil. It's just that they have it fits with the world. Each race has its own level of technology, but the Asura have their own feel, especially with how the entire city seems to be one gigantic university, which is fantastic. And then everybody just gets lost in the grove. Sorry.
I was going to say, you should also keep in mind that the Asura are the race where the devs actually came out and said, we wanted to see what you could do with that diminutive, intelligent race that always got it right, even when they got it wrong.
Oh yeah, that is one thing I actually do love about those guys. They're not completely lacking. If anything, they're actually, if I would say that, if we have two elvish races in this game, I would say they're the humans, in a lot of ways the Asura, especially the high elven, feel of the arcane master and stuff like that. I would say that's the Asura. The ears fit too.
They are the masters of technology. They are, well, it's easy to say they are the most intelligent race. I mean, you can play intelligent characters, but when it comes down to it, the Asura just have that edge. They're literally built for it.
Not to mention, they're also, really, 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 sarcastic and full of it, like a Vulcan is. So there you go. Pointy ears, full of it, focused on science. I'm thinking around the time of Star Trek Enterprise when the Vulcans were warlike. But that's kind of what they fit, except they're just really small. And I think some people are still getting used to the fact that they're not gnomes.
Everyone seemed to think just because they were shot they were going to be the stereotypical sort of comedic gnomes. And if you actually go for the area, sure, there's some very fun and very sort of silly quests, but there's always that serious edge of the fact that, once again, you are dealing with incredible technology. I mean, they've even got artificial intelligence in the golems. It's even explained during the lore. I mean, even though one ends in a romance story, I think, which led to one of our members coming up with a 50 Shades of Chrome he wants to write at some point.
Interesting. The interesting thing, though, if I remember correctly, I think Ree said that a lot of their golems are actually infused with elemental spirits to provide a basis of intelligence. And that is why the Inquest is actually still abhorred in some aspects. They're not evil, but they are amoral because they have former apprentices of Snav like Kudu who are willing to basically rip the soul out of a human or another sentient animal or person and put it inside of a golem. That's what the Inquest is willing to do, and that's why they're so abhorred by some Asura, because sapient testing to them is like one of the worst things you can do.
Which begs the question, how long is it going to be until someone tries to RP as a golem? I want to see if that actually occurs. I mean, I suppose it is possible, but it'd be interesting to see if anyone tries.
They would have to get the environmental hazmat suit and walk around with that or drink golem potions all the time, but if they did that, I would give them the benefit of the doubt. But, yeah. I still got lost in the grove. It's really easy to get lost in the grove.
I somehow managed to remember where everything is in the grove.
Dear God, that's unheard of.
Did you find the little hidden, fountain place that's at the bottom? It's at you go through, water, and there's this really nifty little fountain area where you can hang out. kind of like the sewer section of Lion's Arch. It's got a bunch of little hidden places where you can just hang out and roleplay.
Yeah, I fully explored the Grove, Lion's Arch, and Radasum because when I play a game, that's pretty much what I do is just find all the little nooks and crannies.
I had a lot of fun doing the vistas in the Grove. I have to say, I mean, I love the addition of vistas, by the way. It's another thing just for you to go do, and it really encourages people to explore the map. I can definitely tell you that I'm gonna probably become a map completionist at some point.
Though what still amazes me about the Grove is Char in dress, instantly disguised as Nightmare Court. Makes perfect sense. I mean, I know that's being silly and pedantic, but it was a very funny part of the actual beta weekend when people started exposing that.
Well, it's like there's this bandit camp that's completely barred off. You have to talk to a Lion Guard spy disguised as a bandit, and they'll put you in a bandit disguise to infiltrate the camp and poison their food supply and all. But despite the fact this camp has bandits from every race in it, you are automatically made into a human bandit.
Oh man, yo, that's
That is, I
racist.
think, that is something they could fix because it is a little immersion breaking. But you know, it's not too big of a deal.
Oh, all humans are bandits, are they? Oh, I'm offended.
Yes, all humans are bandits. That should be a meme now.
Human
all humans are
equality.
bandits in Ag Net represent.
Demand human equality. But it was a male bandit too. It's always male bandits. Sexism and racism.
I don't think I got to go to Skritzburg, but I was talking to Koenig the other day, and he said he was messing around in Skritzburg. Did anyone actually go to Brisbane Wildlands and check out the Skrit City?
I did the big event there where you have to protect the king.
Really? I
So
didn't
what is
even
it
know that
like?
was an accessible area.
Yeah, you can go into the throne room, which is basically just this big dome with a Skrit wiggling around on a throne and laughing a lot. But he gets attacked by, I want to say Nightmare Court, but I don't think that's actually it. I think it's actually other Skrit, but my memory is so shoddy. But it's like one of those big world chain events where you just kind of build up to it. I just got lucky by happening to run into it while I was doing a heart quest down there.
I think it's awesome that they actually have a but a non-zone city that you can enter, and there are meta events that affect it.
Yeah, and depending
I
on how
mean-
it plays out determines on whether or not the Skrit in there are friendly. Like if we hadn't saved the king, I believe the enemy Skrit actually take over Skritzburg and then it becomes a hostile zone.
Yeah, the way how Koenig, that's Koenig de Todes from Guru, described it is that we were talking about this, is he said it's basically kind of a Wild West junkyard area. So I could see a bunch of people who could set up entire guilds who just hang out in Brisbane Wildlands, playing like gunslingers, you know, defending Skritzburg.
Oh, that'd be fantastic to
kinda-
see.
It kind of looks like where the Char throw all their scrap metal.
Well, that's basically a gigantic scratch, isn't it? That's what they call their little things, and they become smarter when more of them are in the area.
Yeah, but it does. There's a lot of the textures like from the giant dome in Black Citadel. Pretty much all the metal in Skritzburg is that sort of texture, so it has a very like poor man's Char City feel to it. It's fairly awesome. I mean, I'd love to see them open up some more zones of it instead of it just being sort of these little wormways you can take to reach the bigger region where the king is.
It would be cool if they actually, because I mean, on a side note here, I think out of all the races that they have, you know, I don't know if you can really have Skrit as a playable race because they're not really that intelligent on their own. But opening them more up as a visible race in the game would be fantastic with events and everything. Because they are so unique. I mean, unless we're going to call them Skaven, which they're not, they are pretty unique to the Guild Wars universe.
I was just about to say that actually partly, but yeah, they're very, very different. I mean, like I said, what surprised me is that what surprised me as well was just the whole group intelligence thing. I really didn't expect that sort of almost insect-like sort of hive mind thing going on, which really surprised me and makes an excuse that why Skritzburg is actually a dangerous place compared to everywhere else. Because meeting a small band of them isn't a problem. I mean, you kill lots of them during the quest chains trying to get stuff back, but seeing them in Skritzburg, I'm looking forward to actually seeing that because from what you've said, it sounds fantastic. The sort of area.
Yeah, and the crazy thing about Script is they don't really have a hive mind. What happens is because there's more of them in an area, they can rapidly share information. So basically, a script on its own is kind of just unfocused and stupid. But when they get in groups, their group overall creates. I guess it's not a hive mind that they like kind of communicate with each other as one mind, but they can move consensus very quickly because they just communicate so quickly.
They're pack animals, effectively, aren't they? I mean,
Yep, they're
Well,
rat.
the ANET devs actually pulled a lot from the rat biology with them. Like rats individually are still very intelligent, but they play into groups a lot better. Like they secrete this enzyme from their sides. So, like say if you have a rat in your house and you actually tear away your walls, you will see this gunk along your walls. It's a scent marker. They use that to mark paths to certain things. And if there's more than one rat in that group, and the larger that I'm sorry, speech impediment, the rat sort of hive is, the higher their survivability goes because they have all these rats bringing in this new information and new pathways to them. So they really fed that into the script.
it's really a sign of a good game when an NPC, like non-playable thing, has so much lore behind it. It's like always a good sign of a good game, as far as I'm concerned.
That's what happens when you hire people from TSR and who worked on Legend of the Five Rings, or like Angel McCoy who worked on Changeling the Lost, I believe, though she'll probably tweet and say, no, I didn't. I think she did. But the one reason why ANET excels so well is because they're not just hiring people because they can write. They do that, right? But a lot of their lore people also are brought in because they want to world build and they also want to write for the game itself. They're dedicated. If you ever meet anyone from ANET, all of them expel this very passionate feel. I mean, unless you're catching Bobby on a bad day, so far he's a pretty good guy to talk to. But yeah, the one thing the ANET does really well is that they hire people that actually want to do the job, unlike certain other companies who shall not be named.
Which brings us to my next thought, actually. It seemed unusual. There's been lots of stress tests, I would say, this month. I mean, it's been 2, hasn't there, as far as I understand it? So I was wondering, I mean, with the deadline approaching so quickly, what does this mean to our guilds? I mean, especially you, Dex, what does it mean to your guild, all these recent beta weekends and stress tests? I mean, ever getting into any shenanigans, any fun of your own as a group?
We played hide and go seek for 2.5 hours in Lion's Arch during the last beta, but the stress tests, a lot of us have been having connectivity problems. But we figure it seems like they're doing a stress test every week before launch, trying to work out the last bugs, and some of us aren't participating. And then a solid handful of us are, simply on the basis of they do these for a reason. The least we can do is get in there and file the bug reports.
And speaking of bugs, I've not really found any so far. To tell the truth, at least not ones that have already been flagged. I mean, it seems like it's doing really well already.
We've gotten cases of, we have a member whose Sylvari has no arms, just floating gloves. We found shadows that become solid forms, and I've found instance personal story moments where the final boss of it is invulnerable to everything despite the storyline being cleared up to the kill this character point. So we just kind of get in there and root the stuff out. I mean, there's still bugs in there to be found.
Do you think the launch will be pretty solid? We've got 15 days till launch. I mean, do you think their live client will be solid if they still have these kind of bugs there?
It's already solid. It's just there's all these little superficial bugs. And it's the same thing with any game. I mean, if you've ever been in any other beta, you know there's no such thing as a launch without bugs. It doesn't happen. But I like that they're doing all these stress tests because it shows, at least from my interpretation of it, that they're really committed to making sure that it's the cleanest launch they can do with the time they have allotted. And even then, you know they're going to keep working on it and we'll probably get patched to hell trying to make the game perfect afterwards.
Oh, so at least it won't be like Age of Conan where you launch and like there's no mid game and there's entire chunks of the content missing, and it's actually delivering. It's fantastic, honestly.
You did not just compare ANET to Funcom. That's like fanboy territory that you do not want to cross into.
Well, I just did. I think I have a slight right about the special edition of Age of Conan, and yeah, it's better than Hellgate London. Damn you, roll.
I feel like I just missed a chance to say, oh, no, he didn't, but unfortunately, I've missed my chance, so I'll move us on to the next section, which is Deks time to shine here, because guest Q&A. When we move on to what is your guild and what's it about? I myself don't know much about the guild because I'm relatively new to the scene as it is. So please just tell us all about the guild, what's it about, members, that kind of thing, and we'll just address a few questions and see what you can come up with.
Okie dokie, shall I just start off, or would you like to go in a sort of consistent order of questioning?
We'll throw in some questions. First off, what is the guild? Which guild are you in? Oh, you're leading, precisely.
If I had told you, I'd have to kill you.
Dun 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 dun.
So I'm the guild leader and founding member of Keepers of the Phoenix, which started off as this ragtag group of people who simply just didn't really have a place to go, but we were still talking to each other. So we were like, screw it, let's do our own thing. And I founded it with my co-leader, Shane, who is MIA. But it's basically this group of, in character anyways, it's this group of nomadic merchants and performers who just kind of like dick around Tyria, gathering anything they can deem shiny enough to break in a profit and putting on shows and selling their crafted goods and all. And they all have like this little hidden agenda that's sort of an internal story arc for them only, and they interact with other guilds purely on the basis of we can make money from them, or they know of places we can explore, or they can be of use to us in some way. And that's pretty much what they do, is they just explore Tyria and try to keep their heads above water while trying to accomplish this little agenda of theirs that goes back over 200 years.
I mean, that's actually quite good.
You invented quarks for Tyria.
So sue me.
Okay. Well, it sounds like quark.
I mean, from what I've seen, though, it's good to see an actual merchant. I mean, I don't know everything yet, but it's good to see it as a mercantile guild. The fact that, so far, I think we've interviewed more mercenaries than anything else. Would you say so? I mean, most guilds seem to have that vibe. I mean, we've had, Aegis on. They were more of a vigilante group, but they do hire out protection as mercenaries. And also, the other guild was the mercenary band. So it's interesting to actually see a bit of variety. I mean, it sounds horrible. It's horrible to say because the other two guilds are fantastic. It's good to see something else apart from the sort of mercenary hired muscle thing.
Yeah, when we started, we actually flat out said this is not going to be a mercenary guild. There are too many of those. We want to provide people that can actually give those mercenary guilds something to do that's not done with NPCs. Like, if we do work for someone, it's a you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, not a you pay me and I'll do this.
I still remember the joke we made last year about pitting all the mercenary guilds against each other because every other person and their grandmother was making a mercenary guild. It's actually toned down quite a bit. There's a lot more variety out there. I mean, we have secret societies popping up. We have adventure groups. Everybody's still making adventure groups. But there's at least not 10 mercenary guilds for every non-mercenary guild now.
I mean, after seeing these sort of higher tier armors, especially the heavy armors and things like that, I'm expecting to see a lot of military guilds because the potential for uniforms is quite paramount. And there's one thing I've noticed in games is that some military guilds really like to have a standard uniform for all members. So, get to this dungeon, take this item, and this is what you wear when you're with us, sort of thing. Which is, impressive. It looks properly done, rather than just sort of messy, thrown together sort of affair.
There's a guild called the Royal Fusiliers, and they're actually doing that. They're going to use the Sorrow's Forge. I'm probably messing up the name there. They're going to use the armor from the Dredge, the Dredge dungeon, and it's looking pretty awesome. Basically, look like they're all from Jinro. So I'll be like Jinro, and a character whenever I see them.
So, I mean, how long has this guild been around then? Because it sounds like, you said it was just a grand group of people, so has this been going for a while now, or is this literally just something that's come up recently? I mean, give us some backstory behind, what caused the creation of your guild, please.
Well, we've been around since last December, I believe. My memory's horrible, but yeah, I think that's right. We actually started off as people from the same guild. We were all from the Cartel, but I actually stepped down from my officer position in the cartel because I had a lot of stress going on in my life, and I just didn't have time for the guild anymore. And of course, Sin and I obviously stayed in contact and stayed friends and all of it. Other ones, they stepped down from their roles in the guild for various personal reasons, and then about 3 or 4 weeks later, we all got together in a Skype chat and we're just talking about what we were going to do, and now that our lives had sort of found a balance, and like there was debate on, are we going back to the Ashenfold cartel or do we sort of form our own thing? And the sort of general opinion was, well, let's see what we can do on our own and just go from there. And that's what happened. And then Shane gave me the idea of the main figurehead of our guild, which is the Ancestors, which is a human hero that lived ages ago, who formed the original root of our guild, which was actually a noble thing back in his time when the whole Primordius was starting to rise and people were seeing signs of that. He wanted to have a group that could prepare for that. And it sort of deteriorated when he got attacked by this sort of enemy faction that we're not going into, mostly because it would spoiler my story arc for my own guildies, and I'm not going to do that. But then his sons sort of escaped, and they formed these two factions with the same core ideals, and then over the generations that bloodline died out, and that's when other races started taking up the mantle of leadership for these two things. And then they decided, well, the separation has been too much of a problem for us, so let's just work under the same banner, and that's where the guild is now. So we're starting off in character with a lot of internal strife and stuff, but I kind of got off topic from your question, and I apologize. I ramble. There's a reason Sin and I are friends.
Oh no, it's good. It's good. That's the point of the podcast. We want to know what your guild's all about, so this is good. Do not worry. This means you're answering some questions ahead of time as well, which is good because we can actually get some good information. I mean, for example, what of this core agenda can you tell us about without, spoiling a bit for your own guildies? Because I'm not gonna, force anything from you because that'll just be stupid. But yeah, so please tell me what's this agenda? I mean, what's behind it? Because to my mind, so far, it sounds like you're basically a traveling caravan style of group, just traveling from place to place, exploring, adventuring, just keeping the money, keeping money in your pocket while you can, which is a good concept. I mean, I've not seen anyone actually do that before because, well, compared to everyone else here, I've got very little RP experience. But so yeah, please, what can you tell us about this sort of secret side to your guild?
Well, on a quick side note, the Jesters actually do something very similar to that, although they are more into the pure performance thing. They have a very awesome thing going that isn't all mercenary and stuff. But yeah, the secret society thing, you could almost call us a cult. Like, we're just about there. And they call themselves the Keepers of the Phoenix because they actually believe that they still have the same Phoenix that the ancestor traveled with because he was a ranger. I mean, whether it actually is or not, they don't know. They just assume, and they have it in their head that this Phoenix gives them all these boons and stuff. So it's sort of a religious indoctrination. They have these people, they bring like orphans and strays and people with nowhere else to go, and they sort of rear them up from our lowest rank, which is the underfoot, which is just sort of like people who keep the caravan maintained and campground stuff, and then they slowly bring in ones who show potential and kind of indoctrinate them into this method of thinking that this great ancestor had these magnificent abilities bestowed upon him by this mysterious phoenix, and that the phoenix was still around, blessing the people who upheld the ideals of his former companion. So they have these people kind of brainwashed, but not in the evil sort of way, just in they truly believe this. And they believe the ancestors' main goal was to protect people from the elder dragons, to try and find a solution to this problem, which in his time was very, very minimal. I mean, it was the early signs of Primordius and just the oncoming storm kind of thing. He wanted to make sure everybody had an umbrella. But right now, the main focus, the early story arc we're doing with them, is there is a rebellious group within them that is not happy with the two sides unifying. 5 years ago, the Keepers were led by Arain and Lucius, who were the last remaining descendants of the ancestor, and they were cousins. Lucius wanted to unify the two sides, but under himself. He wanted all of the power. He had arranged to have his cousin killed, and Arain lived in fear of him, so she never married, she never had children. She kept her caravan moving in order to avoid his forces. Well, under Lucius was Magnus, which is Shane's character, and Magnus kind of saw the corruption, and he came from a warband that had been turned gladium because they killed their own commander, which is a convoluted story I can't get into because I don't know. Well, I know it. It's just I'm really bad at relating other people's character stories. But Lucius basically Magnus beheaded Lucius, and Iraine sort of understood the whole situation. So she and a few of the newer members who supported and understood what was going on decided, okay, Magnus is in charge because we have no one else of the bloodline to take Lucius's place. And Iraine was all right for a while. She was grateful, she understood, and then sort of the heartbreak, and she felt like she'd failed her ancestor, and she hadn't carried on the bloodline, and she was too old to do it now. She kind of died of a broken heart. Like, her family was completely gone, and with her death, that was the end of this great bloodline. And she named her dear friend, who was a newborn Sylvari at the time, the new leader of the caravan, and that was Nalker, who was actually my intended main, who is now an NPC for story purposes and the fact that I don't enjoy Mesmer as much as I did in Guild Wars 1. But, yeah, Nalker and Magnus unified the houses under one banner because they were there for all the strife that happened from them being separate and saw what could happen of that. So they were like, we're going to work together from now on. We are the same group. There's going to be no more of this. Well, there's a group of older members who didn't approve of that. They supported Lucius fully, and now they are basically attacking the keepers, and they're like a little terrorist cell, but they only know who two of them are, and they're NPCs, of course. And now recently, Nalker has gone missing. She left a brand spanking new Sylvari in charge and just disappeared without word. And they kind of have to go with this new Sylvari who's sort of stumbling into the leadership role. So there's a lot of strife to start off with. They're dealing with this terrorist cell within their own ranks, and now they have this newborn who they kind of have to work with while she's brought up to speed by Magnus and by whatever it was that Nalker left her to do, and they're still wondering, okay, what the heck is happening? So there's a lot of fun there.
Oh, it's always good to have a bit of inter-guild conflict. That's where the RP comes from. I mean, Sin's always been saying that to us. I mean, that's the reason for all sorts going on in our own. But I love the concepts already. I mean, like I say, it's good to see like the sort of indoctrination process, things like that. And it's, once again, the Elder Dragons. Oh, it's always them, isn't it? Always blame the dragons.
Well, they gave us these big bads. We may as well use them. It's not quite as glorious if we're like this great organization raised up to fight the frog people.
Touche, darling, touche.
The Highlights are such a threat. You know, they just deal crack out in the middle of lines. You gotta deal with them Highlights. They're taking our job.
Massive protest. Everyone out with billboards.
Frankly, I would give my eye teeth to see someone RPing a drug addict character licking a Hylek.
How drunk can we get Gabriel, do you think, Sing?
I already invented violet snuff for you. We're not doing that.
Violet stuff. Woo! Fantastic. Narcotics. In the works, people. Great little bit of lore there, if if you understand what I mean. But anyway, so from there, I mean, that's fantastic. I mean, would you consider yourself then a light, medium, or heavy RP guild? I mean, that sort of thing? Because it sounds very intensive.
I think medium to heavy, because a lot of us are hardcore RPers, like who have years and years and years of experience under our belt, and we've got some who are more novice, but they're still very into the RP part of it. But we're also into the exploration and obviously the dicking around, given the Lion's Arch hide and go seek event that we did. But yeah, I'd say medium to heavy, depending on what we're planning for the day.
I mean, how many members are you now? I mean, it's always an important thing. I mean, are you a large guild, smaller guild? I mean, is there any preference?
We're a smaller guild. We're not really all that concerned with recruiting at the moment, because our main thing is, because I wrote about 92% of everything on the website, the lore and everything, and we're like, my biggest concern as guild leader is I want to have a solid, polished foundation, and then I'll worry about numbers. And right now we have 36 registered people on our site. Of that, 32, I believe, are actual approved guild members, and the rest are guests or allies. And then out of that, we have, depending on the day, 12 to 16 who are active. And we're actually in the process of approving a new member now. So we're a fairly small group, but we're building. I approve of starting off small because it builds up those inter-guild bonds. Everybody gets to know each other, understand, you may not have to like everybody, but we can build a dynamic where they at least respect each other. And then when we have that solid foundation of veteran guild members who are familiar with everything, then we can work towards bringing in new people, because then we know, it's not going to make or break based on who we have or how many we have, because we've got those people we've been working with for months who can keep us at like that solid 30, and then we can build on that. And hopefully one day we'll achieve a greater size, just for the capacity. And the more people you have, the more dynamic and interesting you can make roleplay be. So I wouldn't mind seeing a larger guild. I mean, I was an officer of a guild of almost 200 members in World of Warcraft for 3 years, so I can handle a big group. And I'm fairly impartial about it. We become what we become, but numbers aren't important to me. It's quality over quantity, basically.
The cult must grow. The cult must grow. Sorry, that was only part of all I could hear in my head there slightly. But yes, it does actually sound very good, and it's a very good idea actually when it comes down to it. I mean, I've only got about a year experience under my belt, so I can still understand and admire what you've done there, because it's a lot better for the system if everyone knows each other, understands it. Like you said, it's much more polished when it comes down to it. So that sounds like a fantastic system you've got going.
Thank you. I hope it works.
We do something similar in Ashenfold, except we're kind of now trimming the fat off of the last 3 years. So we try to aim for indoctrination as quickly as possible. And then if people don't fit in, we kind of just say, it's not the guild for them. But we really try to encourage people to be active as possible. So we got about, I think, 70 to 80 core members ourselves. But that's 3 years, whereas Keepers is like 6 months old now. So in about 3, if they can go 3 years, I'm pretty sure Keepers will get pretty decently sized. Bigger guild means bigger stories. Smaller guild means smaller stories. It doesn't really matter about numbers. Quantity doesn't always mean lack of quality. It just means, you can do more epic. You can have entire sides fight each other, whereas in smaller guilds, you have to focus more on having an NPC, or doing kind of like what the Jesters have done with the Harlequins, where they invent another semi-group in their own guild to provide a counter, whereas ours just does it on its own. And I think Deks is already doing that with her own guild. They have a little internal group that is causing problems.
Yep.
Well, I mean, all these into consideration. I mean, is there anything really specific you think that sets you apart from everything else? Because I must say, it does actually sound rather unique already. I mean, I've not seen any this sort of thing before. Like I said, I always end up bumping into mercenary guilds, so it's really, really good to see this sort of thing. It's one of the reasons I joined Ashenfold, actually, was the fact it's not just a straightforward mercenary guild. Yours doesn't sound like a straightforward one at all, as you've described wonderfully. So, is there anything really, really specific though you think sets you apart from everyone else?
At the moment, I think the only thing about us that's really unique is well, I'd have to say possibly the cultish aspect about it, but you can't really make something unique in an RP community. Everybody's got a little bit of everything, and they're all like, the only way you can really make it unique is what you do with your lore and how you work with it, and hopefully not work around it, because that's a pet peeve if I've ever had one. But I'd have to say the only thing about us that's really unique is the religious cult border. Like, we're towing the line of it, if not crossing it. And the fact that our phoenix isn't symbolic, it is literal. It's just the mystery of whether or not it's the same one. But that's about it. I mean, otherwise, we're just another performance mercantile guild, and then we just have this internal thing that might bleed out with other guilds eventually, but at the moment it's purely internal. Like, only members of this guild are aware of the actual cult aspect, while outsiders may see hints of it or some sort of foreshadowing to the real nature in the way that the members respect the leaders and address them. But to the public, at least, they're just this ragtag band of people who put on dancing shows and sell crafted goods and make stupid jokes.
Which makes me wonder. I mean, I understand that they're trying to, help the, prevention from the Elder Dragons. Which the question is, so what do they actually do? I mean, is it small, subtle things like do they influence courts, that kind of thing, or do they even try and slay dragons? I mean, what's the actual main scope of them? What are they capable and willing to do, and what's the extremities they're willing to go?
They're sort of the ends justify the means kind of attitude. The whole reason they're nomadic is that, and like want to explore everything, is because they're trying to root out pockets of the dragon's influence and knock that out. But of course, they don't want to expose that. They just want to do it on their own. They don't want the glory. Like right now, their main purpose, because the Elder Dragons are making such a big influence now, and especially with the Sylvari and Achar, who are the two races who are, if any race is, on the front lines of the dragon battle right from the get-go. They really understand, this thing is coming. It's a big problem that needs to be worked out. But as they realize they can't do a whole lot. They want to rebuild the legacy of their ancestor. At the moment, that's what they're trying to do. That's why they're hoarding all this money and trying to make this profit, so that they can restore the glory to the person who founded this group. And in the process, hopefully find out who it was that destroyed it to begin with and sort of get a little bit of petty vengeance. But that's our beginning. Like, it's going to feed into it. Like, I have story arcs planned up into the hopefully inevitable expansions that take us to Cantha and Alona, and if we're really lucky, the huge gaping black hole that is the rest of the map. But yeah, right now they want to make they want to bring in funds and find all these artifacts, and they're trying to restore their knowledge base of the ancestor. At the moment, they only have these tiny things to go on that were passed down through his bloodline, but it's not a whole lot of information. So we'll be revealing to our guild as we go the whole story behind the guild. Like, our basic lore rundown is just very bare bones. It gives them an idea of why they are the way they are, but nobody really knows the truth of it, and that's what we're going to reveal to them through story arcs. And I've got all these little interlocking things planned. Like, we're starting off with the rebellious group, but behind that we've also got them doing missions. Like, our lore reasoning for going into these dungeons and doing these huge events is that there's something that belonged to the ancestor rumored to be there, and they want to find it. They want to find out more about him, who he is, because they don't even know his name. They just know he's the ancestor, the heart of what they are.
Oh, that sounds brilliant. I mean, it does actually make me think here, because as far as I understand it, and I'm not even going to try and pronounce the cult's name because I cannot do it, so soon you may have to jump in here, but we do actually have a small faction within our own section that has alignment to the Elder Dragon. So possibilities there for our own guilds to interact, which does bring me on to the next stage of questioning, which is, can you see any foretell any sort of interaction between our two guilds?
Me?
I could. I mean, I'm.
Both of you. Go for it.
I'll let Dex go first.
I like guild interaction to build organically. Like, it feeds into the whole romance RP, rivalry, companion, friends, arch nemesis, whatever you want to call it, business acquaintances. I like all of that to build through RP. And I've actually had lengthy phone discussions with Sin about this. Like, I would love for our guilds to interact, but I'd love it to be because we run into each other, say, outside Lion's Arch, or doing both of us maybe in character setting up our merchant guild events. I'm so sorry, I can't speak.
Oh,
in the
don't worry,
same
I'm
zone or
terrible and
something.
I'm hosting. So don't worry,
No,
darling, don't worry.
see, you're European, you never make mistakes. Just leave it at that.
I just sit here with drinks and just keep going with everything, don't worry. I'm drinking since 3.
I'd love to see us. I'd love to see us interact, just because we maybe start off stepping on each other's toes, or just hanging out in the same place, or certain members of our guild just start associating with each other, and then they find out little bits of the truth about each other and come to the leaders and say, I met this person, and they hinted at something that I think could be really beneficial to us. We should do this. Just organic, dynamic things. I absolutely loathe RP that is planned step by step by step. Give me a stepping stone and then let me take it from there. And that's what I'd really like to see happen with the other guilds in this game.
I'd love to see that, because
I can see a bunch of Oh, go on.
I was just going to say, I can see, I mean, especially the mercantile aspect, I mean, I'd love to see him like bump into the coin or the blade, or because I'd love to see what the first interpretation be, because our guild as well has a very multitude of layers, so it'd be great to see what the other one perceives the other as. Because there's so many different layers to it, so it just sounds fantastic. I love the idea of just the bumping into each other and see what develops, because that is fantastic for RP. It always is. Go ahead, Sin.
What's really nice about
I was just gonna say, bumping into the coin would tug at my heartstrings. It's like, oh, my babies.
I actually kept it very close to what you created. It's all there, except I think I changed some roles, but the names are still there. Still Oxhorn, still Ratstand, still Silverthorn.
Hurrah, it was useful.
Well, you had the most intact thing to work with that wasn't like all over the place lore-wise. Because the blade lore was completely gone. I had to rewrite that from the ground up.
Coin.
Yeah, I miss Odd. It'd be fantastic if Odd ever came back. But the really fun thing about the cartel, there's just so many elements. That's the one thing that our guild is. I'm gonna probably come off a little pompous here. The one thing that really kind of sets our guild apart, we're more like a forum roleplay group in that we have multiple factions that we all roleplay in that then interact with each other. So, for example, I could see if the lore learns about that phoenix and there's stories about that, they ever find out about the phoenix somehow, and the Watchers find out about that thing. I could see a bunch of collectors we added this role, and all they do is they capture magical things, like magical phoenix that gives blessings. Let's study it, and they might try to steal it. Or members of the Inquisition might consider some kind of group a threat, and they might send out an assassin. And this is, of course, assuming the negative aspect. I could easily see members of Oxhorn striking up a deal to move supplies and everything, especially since we're going to be doing a lot of legit work out of... Be quiet, Sam. You're not killing the phoenix.
Hands off. This is for guild relations, you.
Well, Sin, as I already told you, the keepers, they take no prisoners. If you cross them, they will, pardon the language, fuck your shit up.
That's good. Fucking the shit up equals plot, and plot is good. I never understand why some people are like, oh no, bad things happen, must run away. I love the bad thing. I mean, I nearly killed off my Mesmer recently because she decided to have a psychotic break when she was alone with Mari Margus. It was a fantastic play, and now she's stable again, somewhat. But
I can fix that.
Oh no! Stay away. Joe is just calming down. Just calming. She's already crazy.
Oh.
Made me realize how much. I got a very mellow character by contrast. I realise now, which is good.
Well, I was just thinking I could.
Just give Gabriel his opium and he's fine.
I was just thinking I could throw my crazy Sylvari at her and see what happens.
Crazy off. Throw down.
Not sure what would happen. Probably some bow chicka bow wow or gunshot.
Or a combination of all of them.
Joe is crazy. But, I mean, we have a lot of groups that could take advantage of something. And that's what was really kind of nice about the fact that we have, like, the Tyrian Accord, which is, our alliance, or we have agreements with everybody. But, the great roleplay is going to happen when we have groups like Sereth Carr, which is one of our other allies, White Aegis, Keepers, and all these different groups applying different aspects of story. We really will have kind of a Westeros going. Have different factions with different agendas interacting and creating natural story with each other.
Sin, I'm your friend. I love you. I think you have an addiction that needs to be addressed.
What?
This entire
Your
podcast is an
obsession
intermission.
with Song of Ice and Fire.
Da 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 da.
You cannot turn Tyria into Westeros. I forbid it.
I know.
This entire podcast was actually an intervention. We're going to break it to you right now.
It's a trick. It's a trap.
We're going to drag you to Pixel Rehab.
Hardcore pixel rehab. It's better than normal pixel rehab.
I'm like the least hardcore person though. I talked to half of them, remember that they all like to argue Song of Ice and Fire in the middle of Skype. There's also Emil, Emil, he has to have his Song of Ice and Fire and tell Sonder that the Black Fires are not the Descent, are still alive. Pretty bad. We're getting off that topic.
But yes, so, I mean, so it seems there's a scope for anything. I mean, it could go down hostile. It could even go friendly. I mean, because of all the different sections, as Sin said, you could have a relationship which is very hostile with one sect, but have a really sort of casual one with something else. And then, of course, there's always the question whether or not the other side knows of the other one. As, for example, the legal side of the cartel, do they know you've got a bad relation with the illegal side, or a good relation with the good side, and a bad relation with the legal side? You know, there's so many different ways this can go, and I think that's going to be fantastic to see in game. Because there's just so many different possibilities of which ways it can go. Because all the different factions, all the different flavors, and sort of themes they have to offer, I can really see some fantastic RP opportunities. But good and bad in the scope of things, you know, hostile or friendly. But it sounds like a fantastic system you've got, and it really flows together nicely with everyone else.
Well, thank you.
Plug for the keeper.
And I must say, I'm probably going to try and keep tabs because I want to see what goes on with this story because it sounds really interesting. You know, the Phoenix. I mean, what happens if the Lord does try and go after it? You know, it's so many different things that could go on. I'm definitely going to try and keep tabs on that if I can.
Imagine if the Lord stole the Phoenix, and then White Aegis accidentally took them, and then keepers now have to get the Phoenix, and the collectors are in jail. That's why the multi-guild storylines are awesome, because you get that wild card factor, which really kills any sense of planning. Because unless you want to make everything perfect, planning only really works when you have small groups. When we have multi-gilded events, there really is nothing you can plan for, because one guild's always going to bring some aspect to the table. And I really do see the Keepers providing a lot of fantastic roleplay in the community in general. So, and if you guys see KOTP tag, you should totally roleplay with them. They're a great crowd. So, should we do Q&A now?
Pardon that, Sin? Cracking up a bit.
Should we do let the people in the channel ask questions?
Well, yeah, I mean, less than anything else you can bring up, because I've asked as much as I can. I mean, it sounds like a great guild. I mean, are there any questions out there from our dear listeners that wish to want to ask us anything? All right, here, can be anything serious or something serious or something fun. Anything will do. Anything goes, as Sin has taught us.
Okay, well, I guess I kind of have a question. So some guilds have in character and out of character structure. How do you guys do it? Do you have the leader do you have it directly as it's one thing, or is there actually some separation?
It's a bit split in that most of our ranks have in character and out of character jobs to do, and I restructured our entire ranking system the minute I found out how the influence system works, because as I said, I love to work with the lore, and I absolutely adore the influence system, the art of war, politics, economy, and architecture. So I restructured our ranking system to where it reflects that. We have our PvP officers for our war section, who we have an in-character PvP member who their character can lead, if we're doing in-character PvP runs or dungeon runs or whatever, then that character. But then we have an out-of-character PvP officer who is actually supposed to be squad commanders and structure for the field, like guiding supply routes, capture points, all these things. But then we also have PvP roles for, say, keeps, which leads more into the strategy and hoarding the supplies and all, and it all feeds into each other in character. But I promote on a separate or joint basis. I give them the option, and what I think they're qualified to handle is to give them. I have some who applied for both in character and out of character responsibilities who I thought would be better in one or the other, and maybe not perhaps both, so they got one or the other. But all of our ranks are possible to be in character with an out of character responsibility. I'm sorry, speech impediment again. So it's basically both, I guess you could say, with the option of separation based on qualifications.
That's a pretty good idea. I consider doing that, but I already have the current system in place. So on that note, who are your officers? Who can we go, if you're not available, who could we talk to?
Well, we have Shane and I as co-leaders, though I'm more of the front man, I guess you could say, because I put my fingers in everyone's pie and take that how you will.
Oh
And
my.
then, of course, we've got Fane in here. Fane's an in-character officer.
Oh, on a side note, someone just asked how newbie friendly are you guys quickly. I know I'm kind of interrupting. That's shocks he's acting. So how do you, on a side note, how are you guys friendly to newbies?
You could actually have Fane answer that question, considering when he joined the AC, I mentored him from the get-go, and I still do when he asks me to. So you could say we're very newbie friendly, because I am more than happy to set aside hours of my schedule to help people with grasping stuff. I mean, I can't speak for my guild as a whole, but I do have officers specifically for helping newbies get the hang of things. If you're inexperienced, I mean, I can't begrudge somebody for a lack of experience. So that's like, I think every RPer should take this attitude of the veterans shouldn't look down on the newbies. We should help make them better, like help them learn faster and stuff, because you're going to learn how to be a good RPer a lot faster if you have someone who's got 10 years of experience helping you out than you would having to sort of navigate it by yourself and stumble through all these mistakes.
Yeah, great system, because when it comes down to it, if you want to get some good RP, well, it's good that you're helping other people shape their RP, help them become good RPers. I mean, that's a fantastic system, you know.
Yeah, any guild that begrudges itself to ignore beginners in the beginning is, I mean, they might have a good following, they might be friendly, but if they're not going to take their time to be respectful to newbies, at least role play with them and teach them the tricks. Because everybody goes through a period where their character is epic, can shoot lasers out of its head, and can god mod. Everybody goes through that. No matter how hard people will say that they never did that, there's usually at least one character in one role play that is basically a god and you're ridiculous. Unless you began as a writer, you understand that you're not supposed to self-insert yourself most of the time. So anyone who gets up in their ivory tower and does that kind of thing is in the long run really just going to be kind of detrimental to the community, because the only way for us to survive is to be friendly to non-role players, is to encourage role play. That's what happened to us in Guild Wars 1. We never really talked much with each other. I mean, there was a lot of friendliness, but at the end of the community, everybody just sat in their guild halls and roleplayed with each other. And then no one thought we existed. We were like elves or gnomes or where the fuck it was, you know? They're like, they come out at night and they take your underpants. I don't know.
So wait, you're cornering the gnome market?
Yes, the gnome market was cornered.
Taking all the underpants, man.
The underpants gnome.
What gets me as well is, I mean, I like to think I'm versed in forum RP, but when it comes to in-game RP, I'm not so sure, because, I mean, I'm hoping to learn a lot from everyone here and various other guilds, see how it's done. Because there's a lot of difference between in-game and forum, because I go crazy with my forum posts, because I'm just used to writing. I'm actually studying it at university, that kind of thing. But so when it comes to in-game though, I'm hoping to learn a lot from the various guilds that we interact with and the guild I'm currently in, because there's so much different sort of tricks of the trade, like you said, that you need to learn. So I'm hoping to pick up a lot from everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and to answer your previous question on officers, since we did sort of get derailed a bit, we have 7 officers, I believe. Freyhild is our internal affairs and chat moderator. We've got Valandor, who's actually someone I roleplayed with since that big guild I was in back in World of Warcraft, and when our guild leader followed his genitals to another server, he took over and he held the guild together. He's one of our PvP officers, and then he's also an architect officer in character, so he's building the big, massive Doom weapons. Then Ahorum is our in-character and out-of-character PvP officer for field PvP. And then we've got Heather, who is an in-character ambassador, which is in-character one of the ones who will be indoctrinating new members, bringing them into the fold, sort of. Andrew, or Strider, as a lot of people know him, is an in-character PvP field officer, so he'd have Ashlyn on the field in character directing members when we go in there for PvP. Also in dungeon runs, because PvP officers basically get the combat slice of the pie. And then Fane is one of our in-character financiers. His character is supposed to supply money and stuff, and that would be Phelan, of course, the mesmer, who I guess can brainwash people into giving up their purses. And then we have Esbrock, who is another in-character indoctrinator kind of role. So yeah, that's our officers. Sorry to sort of cut you off there, but it was a question that went unanswered.
No problem. We're
No
doing
problem at
it
all.
Gundam style. We get it, Adam. We're up on Gundam style.
The posts have been everywhere. We've all seen it, Adam. We've all seen it.
Damn you, Bara, for giving them that song.
It's the bane of Ashenfold currently. It's everywhere, man. It's in the walls.
So should we start wrapping it up?
Yes, I think we've basically covered everything we can with our little segment. Unfortunately, it's only an hour, so we're going to have to start wrapping things up, I'm afraid. I'm just going to say first things first is thank you for coming on to the AshenCast.
Not a problem, I had fun.
I hope to see a lot more interaction between our guilds as things go ahead. You know, hopefully bump into each other in RP, as you said.
Well, be pretty cool. I suppose I could make an effort to stalk some members of the AC during the stress test tonight.
I wish I was on it. You
Spelling
just have to look
out
out for Druggy.
construction order. Hello, please. I need to file an order against a Cledwin. Make sure this gets to the line guard.
What was that?
I was making a joke about restriction orders or something. I'm probably messing up the name. Because you said stalking, so I was making a counter-stalker joke. Died on its face.
Yes, you do that a lot.
Well, my dog's ugly and he ruins everything.
So, yes, I think we're going to have to wrap that up at that, folks. So, this has been another AshenCast. Hope everyone's enjoyed. And to all listeners, hello. Thanks for listening. And thank you very much.